watching out for you. A Fox 5 I-Team investigation.
Yeah, online mugshots are an exploding phenomenon. If you get arrested, your mugshot can show up on a lot of these sites.
Don't be hard on yourself.
Amy Gallagher works for a big finance and accounting firm, and she's seen potential hires' mugshots before she's actually seen them in person. But she says depending on the crime, it doesn't have the impact that you might think.
First and foremost are the qualifications on their resume.
There are more than 100 colleges and universities in the state of Georgia, but only one post-high school option for students who are intellectually disabled.
For inclusive learning. The waiting list is full.
We are behind in supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We rank in the bottom 10 of all states.
All About Developmental Disabilities, AADD, a local group focused on advocating for the disabled, says these programs are self-sustaining once they're up and running.
All eyes are on Wall Street this morning as the social media giant Facebook begins its first day of trading. But should you buy now?
I'd be very careful, especially on Friday with it being the first day. It likely will be very
From the
volatile.
Fox 5 studios, you're watching Good Day Atlanta.
Good old-fashioned pizza. He's here along with Joe DiBartolo. A pizza Vito. Pizza Vito.
That's right.
The accent's on the second.
Dan Rousey is the Senior Director of Technology Programs for the Boy and Girls Club.
You have your own home.
Liz and Craig Cronenberger own an Atlanta startup company, Elf Island. Their livelihoods are dependent on the success of their web-based Adventureland for kids.
We have the heaviest and most difficult standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt here in Georgia.
Say that this case is much larger than Warren Lee Hill. They say they are fighting for all of the death penalty defendants who suffer from developmental disabilities and don't have much of a chance in Georgia to prove that.
We don't believe anyone with an intellectual disability should be executed.
From Fox 5 News, Good Day Atlanta at 9 a.m. starts now.
And there's no such thing as a free lunch, but today we have a giveaway that's close. Find out where you can dine on a 25-cent burger.
Tens of thousands of internet users are at risk. Steps you can take to protect your computer and personal information.
If you've still got the malware present on the machine, it's going to try and reconnect to that same DNS setting every time, but you will have to eradicate it using other means.
Malware could knock lots of people off the internet on Monday. Now, some are even calling it an internet doomsday. Fox 5's Caitlin Pratt has tips on how you can keep your computer safe.
If they don't correct the situation, tomorrow morning when you go to get on the internet, you're not going to be able to get onto the internet.
In a 5-2 decision today, the Georgia Supreme Court denied a stay of execution for death row inmate Warren Lee Hill. He's serving a life sentence was serving a life sentence when he was convicted in the 1990 death of a fellow inmate. That's what gave him the death penalty. Hill still has a petition for a stay of execution pending before the U.S. Supreme Court. His lawyer has also asked the Georgia Board of Pardons and Parole to stay his execution and to commute his sentence.
Well, barring a last-minute court stay, Georgia death row inmate Warren Lee Hill will be put to death at 7 o'clock tonight. But Trey Thomas says a coalition of disability advocates is hoping to stop the execution of the twice-convicted killer.
All About Developmental Disabilities Public Policy Director Rita Young says the recent statements of 3 expert witnesses that Warren Lee Hill is mentally disabled should be enough to stay his execution.
The timing of this, unfortunately, again, we still hold out hope, but our overall goal is to change the law.
Bob Stadler.
Everyone who pays income tax, and some who don't, will feel it. The package of tax increases and spending cuts known as the fiscal cliff that takes effect in January, unless Congress passes a budget deal by then. But what if it doesn't? What are we facing? Will we feel it in the very first paycheck in January? Here to explain it is Frank Finello with UHY Advisors here in Atlanta. Frank, thanks for coming on InfoStar.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
For those who haven't wrapped their arms around it, how critical is the fiscal cliff, and what could it do to the economy if Congress doesn't act?
Well, it's incredibly important to the economy, and as a matter of fact, I believe that although the fiscal cliff is looming, the reality is businesses and individuals have already started to react as if we're over that cliff.
James Marlowe is a clean energy mover and shaker as chief exec of Radiant Solar.
He moderated a session on Georgia's successes in clean energy.
We had examples of geothermal energy, landfill gas recovery, of solar projects working all across the state.
Marlowe says clean energy, especially solar, is ready to explode. Georgia has all of the ingredients, however.
There are about a dozen either regulatory barriers or legislative barriers. We just need a little bit of leadership to kind of get us over the line.
Target is sending out notices to shoppers about a data breach that may have impacted 40 million credit and debit cards used in their stores between Black Friday and December 16th. Data security expert David Barton says there are ways to protect yourself from getting ripped off by cyber thieves.
Some credit card companies will allow you to set up alerts for cards, and you can actually go in and say, look, I want to be alerted anytime my card is used outside of a certain geographical area. Sometimes it's dollar amount.
Unemployment is still well over 8% overall, but how would you like to work in a field where it's down to just 1%? But Andrew Hamilton, Chief Information Officer at Atlanta-based Cardlytics, says times have now changed.
Unemployment for IT seems to be around about 1%.
Hamilton says his company recently staged a code writing contest at Georgia Tech, complete with cash prizes.
A coalition of advocacy groups trying to draw national attention to the death penalty case involving Warren Lee Hill. Kathy Keeley with All About Developmental Disabilities says Hill's IQ of 70 meets the standard for intellectual disability in all other states. She says her group wants the Supreme Court to review Hill's case.
The court has found in the past it's illegal to execute someone with an intellectual disability. So we are hoping if they review this case, they would not only stay, but change the execution to life without parole.
Now, after two previous postponements, Hill's execution is now scheduled for Monday.
All news, all morning. WSB and Atlanta's Morning News. Breaking news, first and accurate, 24 hours a day from Atlanta's local news team, WSB.
Look at backups at I-20 and more in our next traffic update in less than 3 minutes. 7:53 WSB, temperature is 40.
Well, if you even have a budget for Christmas spending, you may not be counting where much of your money is going.
Is it toys, electronics, clothes? None of the above. Casey Byrne at Cardlytics has been looking at anonymous bank records from all over the country, and she says
people still spend most of their money on grocery and restaurants.
45% of the money we spend during the holidays goes for food.
It was surprising.
15% goes toward clothing, 5% for electronics, and just 1% goes to buy toys. Sorry, Junior. Pete Combs, WSB.
County still 3 years away, but as WSB's Pete Combs reports, anticipation among both tenants and landlords in the area is heating up.
Mike Keller at T. Keller & Sons Diamond says this neighborhood just north of 75 and 285 on Highway 41 used to have a name.
This area was known as the Golden Triangle.
But not these days. He says it's become a little run down. But Susanna Kinsey, a broker at Sterling Risk Advisors, says that's about to change thanks to the coming Braves Stadium.
I hear excitement about the revamping of this area.
Look for new and renovated shopping malls, higher rents, and a change in the clientele.
Some of the lower quality tenants will be pushed further out.
Young People Who Rock. It's our weekly series where we feature a different young person or people under 30 doing amazing things. Our young person who rocks this week is 19-year-old Carolina Correa, the Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year. Congratulations.
Joining us to talk about it is Emily Sanders. She's president and CEO of Sanders Financial Management.
She is the first Latina to receive the National Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year Award.
Académicos, sino también por su historia personal. Vamos a conocerla. Carolina, muchas gracias por estar en...
A Denver teen has been named National Youth of the Year by the Boys and Girls Club of America.
Joining us now for some market strategy is Emily Sanders, CEO of Sanders Financial Management, and still with us.
10 minutes after Warren Hill was supposed to have been put to death, Kathy Keeley got word he was still alive. Her reaction?
Stunned. Simply stunned.
Keeley is acting director of All About Developmental Disabilities, a group that's been working with Hill's defense team to raise awareness about intellectually disabled people on death row. Hill has been classified as borderline mentally retarded, unable to comprehend the significance of the death penalty.
We believe the
because he has a proven intellectual disability that he should not die for these crimes.
For now, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals agrees. Pete Combs, CBS News, Atlanta. Kathy Keeley, acting director of All About Developmental Disabilities, says she was stunned to hear that Warren Hill's execution had been stayed 10 minutes after it was supposed to have been carried out.
All indications all day had been there was little possibility of a stay.
The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals granted the stay because of questions surrounding Hill's competency. He is considered borderline intellectually disabled. Keeley says the question now is what has to be done to make sure Hill stays out of the death chamber for good. Pete Combs, CBS News, Atlanta.
And joining us now for a preview of trade today from Atlanta, Emily Sanders, Chairman and CEO of Sanders Financial Management.
Georgia Capitol today, a group of his supporters held a press conference saying it would be a miscarriage of justice if Hill were to be executed. Here's Rita Young from the organization All About Developmental Disabilities.
We believe that putting anyone to death who has an intellectual disability is an injustice.